You know, I know doctors, they have it rough. They have to deal with patients constantly, and they need to, help out someone fast if they're in a critical situation, especially how Kaori was at the end of this episode. I personally feel like the way that doctor treated Kosei at the end of the episode, say like, what are you doing here? Get out, go home. I don't feel like that was like the proper way to react to someone that saw someone, whoever they cared about, in that situation. So, personally, I'm not a big fan of what that doctor said. I know it's her job, and she had to quickly get in there. She had to think fast and help out, Kaori, because she's in a critical state. But what she said to Kosei was just uncalled for. Because, let's just look at this, okay? All we know is that doctor, all she knew, was that Kosei could have been, her little brother, or big brother. Kosei comes up to see his sister, and all of a sudden he sees his sister, his hands drop on the side. Of course, he's gonna be fucking worried. And all of a sudden, a doctor tells you to just go home. What are you doing here? You'd kind of be upset. You would. I mean, I just felt like the way that doctor handled that ending was just like, no. But, like I said, situations depend on that, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how the situations usually are, but the way that dialogue was done, I was like, yo, that's fucked up. It really is. So, this episode of Shigatsu. This episode mainly covered over a lot of things we have already been covering for the past couple episodes, like 60% of this episode, or maybe even more than that, was just going over things that we already know of. For instance, Tsubaki. Well, we already know for the past like 3 or 4 episodes, a lot of the episodes have been focusing on her and her feelings towards Kosei. Moving out of the sister zone or the brother zone, just the friendship zone, and trying to get with Kosei. That's what this episode tried to do once again. It tried to cover over and reconfirm romance, love, and stuff like that. Like, you have 2 points at the majority of this episode. You have it to where Tsubaki's trying to reconfirm her love for Kosei, and then Kosei, majority of the episode, is trying to, confirm his love for Kaori, and then eventually he finds out, yes, he really does love her, he wants to go for her, and he's going to compete with, Watori to try to get Kaori. So, the episode mainly just recapped. That's really what it was. There was some sad moments, some scenes that really progressed the overall plot, and some more death flags on top of that, but majority of this episode was recap. I'm not joking. I'm really not. Like I said, we already know all we need to know from Tsubaki's side. We know she loves Kosei. We know she wants to be with him, and I mean, she made a great step in this episode, a great first step. She took a step and tried to be with Kosei. She, admitted her feelings to Kosei in this episode. And then also you have a great step for Kosei to where he tries to admit his feelings to Kaori in the episode. So there was great steps taken with these two characters, but majority of the episode I felt like it was stretched out way too thin when it comes to the overall execution, because it was just reconfirming these feelings that we already know. Like, we already know these characters feel for each other. We already know that it's obvious Kaori feels for Arima, and Arima likes her. It's so obvious. And it's also the same thing to say with Tsubaki of how she feels with Kosei. And also with the overall aspect of how Kosei needs to study and train for the concert, look over his sheet music and stuff like that. That's, once again, reconfirming that and the path and goal he must choose. And so, I felt like majority of this episode, it was stretched. It was really stretched out. It was a good episode, but it was stretched out, and it just tried to fit in these new different elements, especially with the cat. Now, that is the main focus of this episode I want to talk about. That right there makes this episode sad. It really is what makes this episode so good, because we find out about this cat. This cat, we have seen this cat follow around Kosei constantly through Shigatsu since the beginning. We seen this cat pop up constantly, even in the first episode. And with this episode, we find out some past history with Kosei and a cat. He eventually had to give up the cat and let it go because his mother, just kicked it out and kicked it in the middle of the rain. And he lost, the cat he was raising at the time when he was a little kid. And the way it went about in this episode, it was trying to hint that Kaori is similar to the cat. That is what this episode was trying to emphasize. It was trying to emphasize that Kaori is this cat and, pops up unexpected and, always hits you with a bang at certain random times. And that's what, Kaori does in the series. And that's what the cat scene was trying to emphasize. And along when you see the cat get hit in this episode, right after Kosei experiences something very tragic, especially getting to see someone he loves, and even admits in this episode that he loves, dying in front of him. It's very tragic, because that's a death flag. That straight up is a death flag, because he admits that she is similar to a cat, and then on top of that, a cat dies in this episode. Same episode. So, death flag. Death flag, incredibly obvious, and it's getting more and more obvious, especially with that final scene that just broke me. It slightly broke me when you see how her hand is holding on the rail, and then it just falls down in slow motion, and you're like, yo. Episode, man. Shigatsu. Very good episode. It was a good episode. Like I said, besides the recapping and covering over things we have already seen constantly in the past couple episodes, the episode was good. That's what I will say right now. And that's about it. We're getting closer and closer to the ending of this wonderful series. And I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this series to, tie the knots on the cover. I'm really not ready. But all good things must come to an end. That's what we have to say. And that's what's going to happen to Shigatsu in just less than a couple weeks from now. How do y'all feel about Shigatsu getting closer and closer to the end? Do you feel like Kaori is going to die? We do know she's going to be going into some form of surgery. Do you feel like she's going to be fine? Do you feel like she's going to die? Do you feel like the series will go the route to where she will really die? Let me know. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.